close your eyes for a moment, just a moment. Let your breath slow down and let the day settle. Imagine you are far from the noises of your own time, far from the hum of refrigerators and the glow of screens. Instead, picture a cold stone room. The year is something like 1347, or maybe 1212. The exact date does not matter. What matters is that the light is dim. The only source is a single candle, set on a wooden ledge, its flames small and wavering in the still, cool air. You are a guest in a medieval monastery, and you are about to sleep. But sleep here is not the soft, warm, private affair you might know. It is something else, something shared, something silent, something cold. This is the kind of quiet that feels like a blanket. Not a warm blanket, perhaps, but a blanket of presence. The stone walls around you are thick, 2 or 3 feet of rough-hewn rock, built to last centuries. They hold the chill of the night and the memory of every winter that has passed before this one. The floor beneath your feet is stone too, worn smooth by countless bare feet and sandals. There's a smell in the air, beeswax from the candle, old wood from the simple bed frame, a faint trace of damp stone and herbs. Rosemary, perhaps, or lavender, hung in bundles from the ceiling to keep the air fresh and to ward off any crawling things that might seek the warmth of your sleeping body. You are not alone. In the guest house of a medieval monastery, you share this space with other travelers, pilgrims, merchants, a wandering scholar, perhaps a nobleman stripped of his finery for the night. They are strangers, but in this moment, they are your companions in the dark. No one speaks. The rule of silence in many monastic orders, particularly the Benedictines, was strict. It did not only apply to the monks themselves. Guests were expected to follow the same discipline. You might have been greeted warmly by the guest master, a monk whose duty it was to care for visitors. But once he showed you to your room and whispered the simple rules, the talking stopped. A soft gesture, a nod. Then the door closed, and silence became the only language. Think about what it means to be silent like that. Not the silence of a room where you choose not to speak, but the silence of a place where speaking is forbidden. It changes the way you hear. Your own breath becomes louder. The rustle of your woolen cloak as you sit on the edge of the low bed, that sound becomes a small event. The scratch of a fingernail against a stone wall carries like a whisper. You can hear the wind outside, high up in the eaves of the church. But inside this dormitory or guest cell, everything is padded by the profound quiet. The bed itself is not what you would call comfortable. It is a low wooden frame, maybe no more than a few inches off the ground, or sometimes just a pallet of straw on the floor, covered with a rough linen sheet and a single woolen blanket. The straw crackles when you move. It smells of hay and dust and the faint, grassy warmth of fields. The pillow, if you are lucky, is a small sack stuffed with chaff or dried lavender. You lay your head down, and the scent rises up around your face, cool and dry. And it is cold. That is the other constant companion of a medieval monastery guest. The cold. The stone walls do not hold heat. The floor draws warmth from your feet. The air, even in summer, carries a damp chill that settles into your bones. In winter, it is something else entirely. The monks themselves were hardy. They slept in their habits, often in a common dormitory, with only a blanket and their own body heat. Guests were given a little more consideration, perhaps an extra blanket, but the rooms were not heated. There were no fireplaces in the guest chambers. Only warmth came from the candle, a tiny sun of wax and flame that you cupped your hands around before blowing it out. Let me paint that scene more fully. Picture the moment when you prepare to sleep. You have traveled perhaps for days. Your feet ache. Your back is weary from the road. You have eaten a simple meal, a bowl of pottage and a piece of dark bread, eaten in the refectory, while a monk read aloud from a scripture, his voice droning like a bee in a garden. Then you were escorted here to this cell. The guest master leaves you with a nod and a blessing, a murmured phrase you barely catch. The door eases shut, heavy oak on iron hinges. You are alone, but also not alone. You can hear, through the walls, the faint movements of other guests. A cough, the creak of a bed frame, someone turning over in the straw. You know they are there, but you do not see them. The candlelight casts shadows that move slowly, like the hands of a clock made of wax and wick. You sit on the bed. You take off your outer cloak, your heavy woolen tunic perhaps, but you leave your inner garments on. You will sleep in them. Medieval travelers did not have night clothes in the way we think of them. They slept in the clothes they wore, or at least in their undertunic, because it was warmer. You might also wear a coif, a linen cap, to keep your head warm. Or you might wrap your head in a strip of wool. The cold is a constant negotiation. You pull the blanket up to your chin. It is rough but thick. It smells of sheep. You lie back, and the straw rustles beneath you, settling into the shape of your body. The candle is still burning. You are allowed to let it burn down, or you may snuff it out yourself. Some monks, out of a sense of frugality, would come around and extinguish candles at a certain hour, leaving the guests in absolute darkness. But here, in your imagination, you decide to leave it for a moment. You watch the flame. It dances in a draft you cannot feel. The light is orange and gold, and it makes the stone walls look like amber. The ceiling is low, made of dark wooden beams. The shadows pool in the corners. You feel the weight of the building above you, the church, the cloister, the bell tower, all the silent stone. Now, close your eyes inside your mind. Imagine the feeling of that darkness when the candle finally goes out. You puff the flame away, and the room plunges into a blackness so complete that you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. It is not like the darkness of a modern bedroom, where light from a street lamp or a clock seeps in through the curtains. This is a deep, ancient darkness. It is the darkness of the night before electric light, before gas lamps, before any artificial glow. It is a darkness that you feel. It presses on your eyes. It makes you aware of your own breathing, of the beating of your heart. And in that darkness, the silence becomes something you hear. Not a silence that is empty, but a silence that is full. The monks called this the sacred quiet. It was a time when the soul could hear itself. But for a guest, a traveler not used to such stillness, it could be unsettling. Your ears strain in the absence of sound. You might hear a mouse scratching in the wall. You might hear the distant bell toll the hours, a single clear note that travels through the stone. The bell marks the time for the monks to rise for prayer. Matins, lauds prime. They will chant in the dark while you sleep, or try to sleep. Their voices, muted by the thick walls, become a kind of music, a drone that vibrates in the floor. There is a gentle, humorous irony in this arrangement. You came to a monastery seeking rest, perhaps for your body or your soul. But the very conditions of that rest, the cold, the hardness of the bed, the strict silence, the candlelit darkness, are themselves a kind of discipline. The monks were not trying to make you comfortable in the modern sense. They were offering you a different kind of comfort, the comfort of simplicity, the comfort of being stripped away from the noise and bustle of the world. They believed that a little hardship purified the mind, that sleeping in the cold made the spirit alert, that the silence allowed God to speak. And yet, for all the austerity, there was also a profound hospitality. The guest house was often the most comfortable part of the monastery. Monks slept on hard boards, sometimes without pillow or blanket, while guests were given straw pallets and wool covers. The guest master brought warm water for washing if you asked. He might offer a cup of mulled wine before bed, spiced with cinnamon and honey, to warm your belly. The monks understood that the traveler had suffered the road, the rain, the dust, the aches. They did not want you to suffer more, but they also knew that true rest is not about softness. It is about safety. And in that cold stone room, with the candle flame and the straw pallet, you were safe. The walls were strong. The gate was locked. The monks prayed for you while you slept. Let your mind drift deeper into that room. The floor is uneven, worn by centuries of feet. The window is a narrow slit, high in the wall, too small for a person to climb through, but wide enough to let in a sliver of moonlight when the moon is full. Tonight there is no moon. The window is a dark rectangle, and the air that seeps through it is sharp and clean. You pull the blanket up higher, over your ears. The wool tickles your chin. You shift your weight, and the straw crackles. You settle into a hollow that seems made for your body. You think about the people who slept here before you. A merchant from Flanders, carrying bolts of cloth. A pilgrim returning from Santiago de Compostela, his scallop shell still pinned to his hat. A woman, perhaps, because some monasteries had separate guest houses for women, though they were rare. You think about their footsteps on this same floor, their hands touching this same wooden beam, their breath in this same cold air. The monastery is a place that holds memory. The stones soak up the stories. There's a sound now, faint but distinct. Footsteps in the corridor. Soft, slow footsteps. It is the monk who keeps the night watch. He walks the halls with a lantern, checking that all is well. His sandals slap gently on the stone. The light of his lantern seeps under the door, a thin yellow line. You hear him pause. Perhaps he is listening. Perhaps he is praying. Then the footsteps continue, fading into silence. The yellow line vanishes. You are alone again in the dark. The candle is gone, but the afterimage of its flame still flickers behind your closed eyelids. You take a slow breath. The air is cold and dry. You feel the weight of the blanket on your chest. You feel the hardness of the pallet beneath your back. This is not the sleep of comfort. This is the sleep of necessity. The sleep of a body that has walked all day and has nowhere else to go. Your muscles slowly unclench. The cold begins to feel less like an enemy and more like a presence, a companion that keeps you alert and aware. In the monastery, sleep was considered a gift, but also a discipline. The monks regulated it strictly. They rose before dawn, often at 2 in the morning, to chant the night office. They allowed themselves only a few hours of sleep, divided into 2 or 3 periods. Guests were not required to follow this schedule, but the bells would ring anyway, and you would hear the movement of the monks in the cloister, the soft shuffle of sandals, the murmur of psalms. You could lie in your straw bed and listen. It was like a lullaby, but a lullaby sung by men who had dedicated their lives to giving up sleep. The silence, the cold, the candlelight, these were not inconveniences. They were the very fabric of the experience. They were the conditions under which the medieval soul learned to rest. And over the next many minutes, as we explore this topic together, we will stay in that stillness. We will wander through the stone corridors of a monastery guest house, and we will exhale the clamor of modern life. Here, in this story, there is no rush. There is only the slow fall of night, the flicker of a flame, and the deep, quiet breath of a sleeper in the dark. So let your mind grow soft. Let your thoughts become like the shadows on the wall, slowly dissolving. You are a guest. You are welcome. The bed is hard, but it will hold you. The silence is deep, but it is safe. And the candle, though it is gone, still glows in your imagination, a small, warm point of light in a vast, quiet world. And in that vast, quiet world, you begin to notice the smallest sounds that the day had masked. The crackling of the straw as it adjusts to your weight, the gentle creak of the wooden roof beams contracting in the cold. Somewhere far away, a dog barks once, twice, then falls silent. The sound travels through the valley, muffled by the stone walls, and arrives in your room as a distant echo, a reminder that the world outside still exists, but it is far away now. You are inside the monastery, and the monastery is a world unto itself, wrapped in its own rhythms and rules. Your mind wanders to the other guests who might be sleeping in the cells nearby. You do not know who they are, for you have not seen them. The guest master assigned you to this room with a nod and a gesture, and you did not ask questions. That was the custom. In the monastery, you did not ask for names or business. You were all travelers, all pilgrims, all souls in need of shelter. Perhaps in the next room is a merchant who has lost his way in the mountains, his boots still wet from the snow. Perhaps a scholar carrying a manuscript of Cicero in his satchel, hoping to find a warm corner to read by daylight. Perhaps a woman, a noble woman traveling with her retinue, but she is lodged in a separate wing behind a locked door, for the monks were careful about such things. You do not know, and you do not need to know. The anonymity of the guest house is part of its peace. You are not a name. You are a guest. is enough. The straw beneath you has a faint, sweet smell, like hay dried in the sun. The monks change it twice a year after the harvest, when fresh straw is brought in from the fields. The old straw is taken out and burned, and the new straw is spread thick and even. Your palate still carries that fresh scent, mixed with a hint of lavender. The monks sometimes sprinkle dried lavender among the straw to keep the fleas away and to make the bed smell pleasant. It is a small kindness, one of many that the guest master provides without fanfare. He knows that a weary traveler needs more than just a roof. He needs a place where the senses can rest, where the nose can find a familiar scent of home, where the rough wool blanket feels like a gift. You pull the blanket closer, and you notice its texture. It is not soft like modern fleece. It is coarse, woven from the wool of the monastery's own sheep. The fibers are scratchy against your cheek, but they hold warmth well. You can feel the lanolin, the natural oil of the wool, which makes it slightly water resistant. If you were caught in a rainstorm, this blanket could dry you. It has done so for many travelers before you. There's a patch on one corner, sewn with thick, uneven stitches, probably by a monk who learned to sew out of necessity. You run your finger over the patch, feeling the thread. It is a humble thing, but it speaks of care. Someone took the time to repair this blanket, not because it was valuable, but because it was needed. The cold air moves gently around the room. You can feel a draft along the floor, where the door does not quite fit its frame. In winter, the monks would stuff rags under the door to block it. But tonight it is only autumn, and the cold is not severe enough to warrant such measures. The draft swirls around your ankles, then rises to your knees. You tuck your feet under the blanket, curling your toes. Your body slowly warms the space around you, creating a small pocket of heat. It is a slow process, like the rising of bread dough. You breathe into the blanket, and your breath comes back warm and moist. Your thoughts drift to the monks who are now in the church, singing matins. You cannot hear the words, but you can hear the rising and falling of their voices, like waves on a distant shore. The psalms are sung in Latin, the ancient language of the church, and the sound is smooth and repetitive, not meant to be understood by the mind, but to be felt in the chest. The monks chant from memory, having recited these same psalms thousands of times. Their bodies know the rhythm. They sway slightly as they sing, and the candlelight in the choir flickers with their movement. If you were to stand in the doorway of the church, you would see 100 small flames, each one a prayer, each one a point of light in the darkness. But you are not in the church. You are in your cell, and the sound is enough. You wonder about the guest master, the monk who welcomed you at the gate. He is an older man with a face lined by wind and fasting. His hands are rough, the hands of someone who works in the garden and the kitchen. But his voice is soft, and his eyes are kind. He brought you bread and cheese and a cup of mulled wine, and he sat with you for a moment while you ate, not speaking, just present. That is another gift of the monastery. Silence that is not empty, but filled with companionship. In the world outside, silence is uncomfortable. People fill it with chatter, with music, with the hum of machines. Here, silence is the natural state. It is the air you breathe. The candles in your room have all been extinguished now, but your eyes have adjusted to the darkness. You can sense the shape of the room, the darker rectangle of the window, the faint outline of the door. You know that if you held your hand in front of your face, you would not see it, but you would feel the space around it. The darkness is not empty. It is full of the presence of the room, the history, the prayers. You close your eyes, and the darkness becomes deeper, softer, like velvet. You begin to relax more deeply. The tension in your shoulders, which you did not even notice, slowly releases. Your jaw unclenches. Your feet, which have been cold all day, finally feel the warmth of the blanket. You imagine the heat spreading through your body, starting from your core, radiating outward like a slow fire. The monks called this process recollectment, the gathering of the scattered pieces of the self into a centered whole. It is a form of prayer, but you do not have to pray. You simply allow yourself to be present, to feel the weight of your body on the straw, the rise and fall of your breath, the quiet beating of your heart. The night deepens. The bell for lauds will ring in a few hours, and the monks will rise again to sing the praises of the dawn. But for now, there is only this long stretch of darkness, this endless moment between the last candle and the first light. You think about the phrase, the dark night of the soul, which the mystics used to describe a period of spiritual dryness and longing. But here, in this simple room, the darkness is not a trial. It is a comfort. It is the absence of distraction, the pure, uncluttered canvas on which the soul can rest. You remember a story you once heard about a monk who spent his entire life in a cell much like this one. He never traveled, never saw the great cathedrals of Europe, never met the famous scholars and saints of his time. He simply lived in his cell, praying and working, and he died there, old and content. When the other monks asked him if he regretted not seeing the world, he said, "I have seen the entire world in my cell, for the world is nothing but a reflection of the soul, and the soul is infinite." You do not know if the story is true, but it feels true tonight, as you lie in the darkness, feeling the vastness of your own inner space. The wind outside picks up, and you hear it whistling through the cracks in the stone. It is a low, mournful sound, like a distant flute. The monastery is built on a hill, exposed to the weather, and the wind can be fierce in winter. Tonight, it is only a breeze, but it carries the smell of wet leaves and earth. The season is turning. The leaves have fallen, and the ground is soft with rain. In a few weeks, the first snow will come, and the monastery will be wrapped in white silence. The guest house will be cold then, but the monks will have prepared. They will have stacked firewood in the shed, brought in extra blankets, and filled the larder with dried apples and salted fish. The traveler who arrives in winter will be greeted with a hot bowl of pottage and a place by the fire. But tonight is not yet winter. Tonight is the season of rest, the slow drift between harvest and hibernation. You feel the season in your bones, the ancient rhythm that tells your body to slow down, to sleep longer, to dream deeper. The medieval monks understood this rhythm. They did not fight the darkness. They embraced it, using the long nights for prayer, meditation, and reading by candlelight. They believed that the night was a time of grace, when the soul could hear the voice of God more clearly, because the noise of the day had faded. You shift again, turning onto your side. The straw crinkles, and you find a more comfortable position. Your hand rests on the blanket, and you feel the warmth of your own body. You think about the candle you let burn down before you snuffed it. The flame was small, but it gave enough light to see the room, to read a line of scripture, to write a letter by its glow. The monks were careful with candles, using tallow or beeswax, depending on the season. Beeswax burned cleaner and smelled sweet, like honey, but it was expensive. Tallow, made from animal fat, was cheaper, but it smoked and smelled of grease. Guests were usually given tallow candles, unless they were very important. You remember the smell of your candle, a faint, fatty scent, mixed with the dust of the room. It was not unpleasant. It was the smell of the medieval night. You close your eyes again, and this time you feel the pull of sleep, like a gentle current drawing you downstream. Your thoughts become less linear, more like images drifting through your mind. You see the face of the guest master, his weathered skin, his calm eyes. You see the bread he gave you, a round loaf with a cross scored on top. You see the cup of wine, warm and spiced, and you taste the cinnamon on your tongue. You see the straw pallet, the rough wool blanket, the stone walls. These images blend together, forming a single sensation of safety and simplicity. And then, slowly, you are no longer thinking. The thoughts dissolve into the darkness. The sounds of the monastery, the wind, the distant chanting, the creak of wooden beams become a background hum, like the sound of a river flowing. You are aware of your breath, but even that awareness fades. The last thing you hear is the soft knock of the night watch monk's sandals on the stone floor, growing fainter, receding into the distance. And then you are asleep. But even in sleep, your body remembers the cold. You dream of walking through a snow-covered field, the white ground crunching under your boots. Behind you, the monastery is a dark shape against the gray sky. Ahead of you, a forest of bare trees, their branches like fingers reaching for the clouds. You are walking, but you are not tired. Cold is pleasant, like a cool drink on a hot day. You are going somewhere, but you do not know where. The dream is not a story, but a feeling, a movement through space without destination. The dream shifts. Now you are in the monastery kitchen, where a fire burns in the hearth. The guest master is there, stirring a pot of porridge. He turns to you and smiles. He says something, but you cannot hear the words. The sound is muffled, like hearing through water, but you understand him anyway. He is saying, rest. You are safe. The night is long, but morning will come. And you feel a warmth spreading through your chest, the warmth of being cared for, of being seen. You wake briefly, not fully, just enough to register the darkness and the cold. The wind has died down. The chanting has stopped. A profound silence fills the room, so deep that you can hear the blood moving in your ears. You open your eyes, but the darkness is absolute. You blink and you see nothing. For a moment, you are disoriented, not knowing where you are. But then you remember the monastery, the guest house, the straw pallet. You feel the blanket, the hardness beneath you, and you are comforted. You close your eyes again, and you fall back into sleep. This time, the sleep is deeper, dreamless. Your body sinks into the straw, your muscles fully relax, and your breath becomes slow and even. The night passes hour by hour in the quiet rhythm of a sleeping heart. The bells ring for lauds, but you do not stir. The monks chant, but their voices are distant, like the murmur of a river far away. You sleep through it all, wrapped in the warmth of your own body, cradled by the darkness. And in the morning, when the first gray light slips through the narrow window, you will wake slowly, gently, like a leaf rising to the surface of a pond. The guest master will bring you a basin of warm water and a piece of bread. You will sit on the edge of your pallet, blinking in the thin light, and you will feel a strange sense of renewal. The cold night has not hurt you. It has made you stronger, more aware, more alive. You will pack your things, thank the guest master, and step out into the morning air, carrying with you the memory of the quiet, the candle, the silence, and the deep, ancient peace of the monastery. But that is for later. For now, you are still asleep, and the night stretches on, endless and gentle. The candle is gone, but its light remains in your mind, a small, warm point of hope. The silence is full, and the cold is kind. You are a guest, and you are welcome. And in this story, as in the monastery itself, time moves slowly, and there is no need to rush. So rest. Let the darkness hold you. Let the sleep come. Let the night be your companion until the first bell rings and the stars fade and the world begins again. The night deepens and you drift further into the quiet. The monastery settles around you like a great stone vessel, holding the silence. You are not truly awake, but you are not fully asleep either. There's a state between, a half-dream where the walls of your cell feel softer, the darkness warmer. This is the hour when the soul floats free of the body, when thoughts rise and fall like leaves on a slow stream. You remember something the guest master told you earlier during the meal. He said the monks sleep in their habits, fully clothed, even in summer. They believe the body should never be too comfortable, lest the spirit grow lazy. They sleep on straw like you, but many of them have only a single blanket, even in the coldest months. They do not allow themselves the luxury of a pillow, using a rolled-up cloak or a piece of wood instead. It sounds harsh, but the guest master smiled when he said it. He said the body adapts. After a few weeks, the cold becomes a friend, the hardness a comfort. You think about that now, lying on your own straw pallet. The cold is not cruel. It is simply present, like the darkness, like the silence. You shift again, and the straw rustles. The sound is loud in the stillness. You wonder if the guest master is still awake, if he is in his own cell, praying or reading. He sleeps in a small room near the guest house, always ready to attend to a traveler's need. He might be kneeling on the cold stone right now, his hands clasped, his lips moving in the Latin psalms. The monks pray 8 times a day, and once during the night. The night office is called matins, or sometimes vigils. It begins around midnight, when the bell rings, and the monks rise from their beds, light their candles, and shuffle into the church. They stand in the dark, singing the psalms by heart, their voices blending into a single, ancient sound. You heard them earlier from a distance, and the sound was like water moving underground. It was not loud, but it filled the whole monastery. Even now, hours later, you can feel the echo of that singing in the stone floor, in the walls, in your own chest. Some nights, the guest master told you, the monks sing for over an hour. They sing through the darkness, and the candles flicker, and the shadows dance on the walls. The church is unheated, so the monks wear their cloaks, and their breath makes small clouds in the air. They do not complain. Complaining is against the rule. They accept the cold as a penance, a small offering to God. And when the office is over, they return to their cells, blow out their candles, and sleep for a few more hours before lauds, which comes at dawn. It is a hard life, but it is a life of purpose. Every hour is given meaning. Even the night, which for most people is just a gap between days, is filled with prayer and reflection. You think about the abbot who leads the community. He has his own cell, but it is not much larger than the others. He eats the same food, sleeps on the same straw, wears the same rough wool. He is the father of the monastery, but he is also a servant. The guest master told you that the abbot sometimes visits the guest house himself to check that the travelers are comfortable. He will sit and talk with them, not about theology or politics, but about their journey, their health, their families. He is a kind man, the guest master said, with a gentle voice and a sadness in his eyes. He has been abbot for 30 years, and he has seen many guests come and go. He never forgets a face. He prays for them after they leave, by name, in his nightly prayers. You feel a warmth thinking of that, the idea that a stranger is praying for you, somewhere in the dark, long after you have gone. The wind returns, a soft gust against the window. The glass is thick and wavy, and the moon, if there is one, is hidden behind clouds. You cannot see the sky, but you know it is there, vast and cold, with stars that have been shining for millennia. The monks know the stars well. They use them to tell the time, especially during the night, when the bells must be rung at the correct hour. The bell ringer, a monk with a strong arm and a good sense of rhythm, is always awake before the others, listening for the signal. Sometimes he uses a water clock, a simple device that drips water from one vessel to another, marking the hours. Other times, he watches the position of the constellations, or the shadow of the moon on the stone floor. The monastery is a place of precision, where time is measured not by clocks, but by the movement of light and water and stars. You remember a story the guest master told you about a bell ringer who fell asleep during matins. He had been up all night, working in the scriptorium, copying a manuscript. His eyes were heavy, and he missed the hour. By the time he woke, the stars had shifted, and the monks were already stirring. The abbot was merciful. He did not punish the monk, but he gave him a special task, to copy the entire book of Psalms by hand as a penance. The monk did it gladly, and his copies are still in the monastery library, beautiful and precise. The guest master said that even mistakes can become gifts if they are offered with a humble heart. You think about that as you lie in the darkness. Your own mistakes, your own failures, seem smaller tonight, softened by the distance of centuries and the echo of that monk's pen scratching on parchment. Sleep begins to pull you deeper, but your mind stays half awake, roaming through the monastery. You imagine the library, with its shelves of leather-bound books, the smell of old paper and beeswax. You imagine the scriptorium, where monks sit at slanted desks, their pens moving in the light of tallow candles. They are copying not just the Bible, but the works of the church fathers, the lives of the saints, the chronicles of kings and wars. Each letter is a prayer, each page a life's work. The scriptorium is warm in winter, heated by a single brazier, but the warmth is reserved for the ink, not the scribes. They wear fingerless gloves, their breath visible, and they pause every hour to warm their hands under their arms. They are patient, these monks, more patient than you can imagine. They spend months on a single manuscript, years on a library. And when they finish, they do not sign their names. They know that the work is not theirs, but God's. It is enough that the words survive. You feel a pang of longing, a wish to be part of that world, to live a life so simple and so full. But even as you think it, you know that your own life is not so different. You are here, in this cell, in this darkness, and that is enough. The night is a scriptorium of its own, writing its silent text on your soul. Every hour is a letter, every breath a word. And you are the reader, the one who receives the message. The message is simple. You are alive, you are held, you are not alone. The hours pass. You do not know how many. The bell for matins does not wake you, or if it does, you do not remember. You are in that deep, dreamless sleep where time disappears. When you next become aware, it is the gray light of early morning, filtering through the window. The darkness has thinned, and you can see the shape of the room, the walls, the door, the wooden cross above your head. The candle stub is cold. The air is still, but it holds a new quality, a freshness that tells you the night is over. You hear the birds outside, a few tentative chirps, and then the bell for lauds, clear and bright. The monks are singing again, their voices rising in the dawn. They are singing the hymn of the morning, a song of praise for the light that returns, for the mercy that is new every day. You sit up slowly. The straw rustles. Your body is stiff from the cold, but you feel a strange energy, a clarity that comes from a night of deep rest. You stretch your arms above your head, and your shoulders crack. The blanket falls away, and you feel the chill on your skin. You do not mind. You are awake, and the world is new. You think of the guest master, who will soon bring you warm water and bread. You think of the road ahead, the journey you will resume after the morning meal. But for now, you sit in the silence, your hands resting on the blanket, your eyes on the gray light. You are a guest, and the monastery has given you a gift, the gift of a night that was not just sleep, but a slow, thoughtful encounter with the dark. You will carry this gift with you, long after you have left the stone walls behind. You will remember the cold, the candle, the silence, and the strange, gentle peace that comes from being a stranger in a place where time is measured not by hours, but by the heart. The guest master's knock comes softly at your door, a gentle tap that breaks the quiet. He enters with a basin and a pitcher, steam rising from the water. He sets them on the small table, and he places a piece of bread beside them, fresh from the oven, still warm. He smiles, and his eyes are bright. He asks how you slept. You open your mouth to answer, but the words are slow, still wrapped in the remnants of sleep. You tell him you slept well, deeply, better than you have in years. He nods, as if he expected this. He says, "The night in the monastery is a medicine, a remedy for the restless soul." He turns to leave, but he pauses at the door. He says, "When you leave, remember that the darkness is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It shows you the things you cannot see in the light." He bows his head and closes the door behind him. You sit for a moment, the steam rising from the basin, the bread warm in your hand. You eat slowly, chewing each bite as if it were a small prayer. The water is hot, and it wakes your skin. You wash your face, your hands, the back of your neck. The water cools quickly, but it is enough. You dress, folding the blanket neatly, smoothing the straw. You look around the cell one last time, memorizing the details. The crack in the wall, the knot in the wood, the smell of dust and stone and tallow. You will remember this place, this hour, this morning light. You open the door and step into the corridor, where the stone floor is cold under your bare feet. The monastery is waking around you, the sounds of footsteps and voices, the smell of bread baking and wood smoke. You join the stream of monks and travelers moving toward the church for the morning office. The choir is already singing, and you find a place in the shadows, behind a pillar, where you can listen without being seen. The voices rise and fall, the Latin words familiar even if you do not know their meaning. You feel the vibration in your bones, the resonance of 1,000 years of prayer. The light from the candles flickers on the stone walls, and the morning sun begins to creep through the high windows, painting the floor in gold and rose. You are here in this moment, and it is enough. The night is over, but its lessons remain. You will walk out of the monastery in a few hours, back into the world of noise and haste. But you will carry this silence with you, like a candle hidden under your cloak. And when the night comes again, in your own home, in your own bed, you will remember the cold, the straw, the darkness, and you will close your eyes with gratitude, knowing that you have been a guest in a house of peace. And that peace is still with you, even now, even here, as the bells ring and the monks sing, and the morning unfolds in its slow, ancient rhythm. The day is new, and you are awake. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift of all. You stand there, leaning against the pillar. The stones cool through your tunic. The monks' voices continue, and you close your eyes, letting the sound wash over you. The Latin words are a chant, a rhythm older than memory, and they seem to come from the walls themselves. The church is cold, but the cold feels clean, like a refreshment rather than a punishment. You breathe in the scent of old incense and damp stone, and you feel your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench. The night has left you softened, and the morning holds you gently. When the office ends, the monks file out in silence, their sandals slapping softly on the stone floor. The abbot walks slowly down the aisle, his hands clasped behind his back. He pauses near you, and you open your eyes. He smiles, a gentle, knowing smile, and he gestures for you to follow him. You fall into step beside him, your bare feet silent next to his sandals. He leads you through a narrow door into a small courtyard open to the sky. A fountain trickles in the center, the water catching the early light. He stops and turns to you. The abbot speaks softly, his voice like a low bell. He says that many guests come to the monastery seeking rest, but few truly find it. Rest, he explains, is not merely the absence of activity. It is a surrender of the will, a letting go of the need to control the hours. He tells you that the rule of Saint Benedict commands the abbot to welcome every guest as Christ himself, but it also warns that guests can distract the community from its prayers. So there is a tension, a balance. The guest is honored, but the guest is also expected to respect the silence, to follow the rhythm of the bells, to become, for a little while, part of the great slow breathing of the house. You listen, and the words seem to hang in the air between you, clear and unhurried. The abbot continues. He tells you about a guest who came many years ago, a knight who had fought in the Crusades and could not sleep. He had seen terrible things, and his mind was a battlefield. The monks gave him a cell like yours, and they did not try to counsel him or cure him. They simply let him stay. For 3 nights, he did not sleep. On the 4th night, he woke to find the guest master sitting in the corner, saying nothing, just keeping watch. The knight wept, and the guest master did not speak. He only sat there, a silent presence. The knight later told the abbot that the guest master's silence was like a wall that held back the world. He began to sleep after that, a few hours at a time. He stayed for a month, and when he left, he was not healed, but he was lighter. He wrote to the abbot years later, saying that the silence of the monastery had taught him how to carry his memories without being crushed by them. The abbot looks at you with eyes that have seen many guests, many stories. He says that you too have carried something heavy into this place. You do not need to name it. It is enough that you have set it down, even for a night. He reaches into his sleeve and brings out a small wooden cross, smoothed by many hands. He places it in your palm, and it is warm, as if it had been held for a long time. He says this cross was carved by a monk 100 years ago. It has been given to many guests, and each one has left a little of their burden in the wood. He says you may keep it, or you may leave it for the next guest. The choice is yours. You hold the cross, turning it over in your fingers. It is simple, with no ornament, just the 2 beams joined at the center. You feel the grain of the wood, the slight roughness where the carver's knife had caught. You think of the hands that have held this cross, hands that were cold, hands that were shaking, hands that were at rest. You close your fingers around it and nod. The abbot smiles again and says that you will know what to do when the time comes. He leads you back inside, through a corridor lined with doors, each one closed. He pauses at one and opens it. It is a small room with a desk and a single candle. On the desk is a manuscript, open to a page of illuminated initials. The colors are still bright after centuries, the gold leaf catching the light. He tells you that this is the scriptorium, but not the one where the monks work. This is a quiet room where guests may sit and read, or write, or simply be still. He leaves you there, saying he will return before the midday meal. You sit at the desk, the cross still in your hand. The manuscript is a gospel book, the letters elegant and even. You trace the edge of a page, careful not to smudge the ink. The vellum is soft, like skin, and it smells faintly of lavender, a scent that the monks used to keep the pages from growing mold. You do not read the words, for they are in Latin, but you let your eyes follow the curves and lines, the red and blue and gold that decorate the margins. There is a small bird in the corner of one page, a sparrow, painted with such care that you can see the individual feathers. You wonder about the monk who painted it. Was he old or young? Did he have a steady hand? Did he think about the guests who would one day look at his work? You imagine him bent over the desk, his brush moving in tiny strokes, his breath slow and even. He was not painting for fame. He was painting for the glory of God and for the delight of the reader, a reader unknown and far away. You set the cross on the desk beside the manuscript. It looks at home there, the wood against the vellum. You let your mind drift. You think about the night you spent, the cold and the silence and the candle. You think about the bell ringer who missed matins and copied the psalms. You think about the night and the guest master. You think about your own life, the noise and hurry, the small worries that seem so large. Here, in this room, they seem to shrink, like shadows when the sun rises. The light through the small window shifts. The sun climbs higher, and the room grows warmer. You hear the distant sound of the monks in the cloister, their voices low as they walk to the chapter house. The morning unfolds slowly, each minute a tiny event. You are not bored, you are not restless. You are simply present, sitting at a desk with a manuscript and a wooden cross, and that is enough. After a long while, the abbot returns. He carries a small tray with a cup of warm milk and a piece of honeycomb. He sets it before you and says that you will soon have to leave if you wish to reach the next town before nightfall. He does not rush you. He waits while you drink the milk, which is sweet and thick, and eat the honeycomb, which melts on your tongue. He asks if you would like to visit the church one last time before you go. You nod, and he leads you back to the nave, which is now empty and quiet. The sun streams through the high windows, casting long oblongs of light on the floor. The candles have been extinguished, but the air still holds the scent of beeswax and smoke. You walk to the altar, a simple stone slab with a single candlestick and a cloth embroidered with a cross. You kneel not out of piety, but out of a need to let your knees touch the stone, to feel the solidness of the place. The abbot stands a few steps back, his hands folded. You close your eyes and say nothing. There is nothing to say. The silence is your prayer. After a few minutes, you stand. The abbot holds out a small leather pouch on a cord. Inside, you find a piece of the bread you ate this morning, a sprig of dried rosemary, and a short note with a single line from the rule of Saint Benedict. Let all guests be received as Christ. You tie the pouch around your neck, tucking it under your tunic. The abbot bows, and you bow in return. You walk to the gate. The porter opens it for you, his face lined but kind. He gives you a small bag of dried fruit and a flask of water. He says the road is straight for the first 3 miles, then it forks. Take the left path, he says, and you will find a village by evening. He does not say goodbye. He says, God be with you, and he closes the gate behind you. You stand on the path outside the walls. The monastery rises behind you, gray and patient. The birds are singing in the hedgerows, and the sun is warm on your shoulders. You take a step, and then another. The road stretches ahead, and you walk. The cross in your pocket is a small weight against your chest. The silence of the night is still with you, like a low hum in your bones. You do not know what lies ahead, but you are not afraid. You have been a guest in a house of peace, and that peace has become part of you. You carry it with you, a candle hidden under your cloak, lighting the way, one step at a time. Walk, and the road unwinds before you like a length of undyed wool, pale and dusty and unremarkable. The hedgerows are thick with bramble and wild rose, and the air carries the faint sweetness of ripening fruit. You pass a field where a man is scything hay, his movements slow and rhythmic, the blade catching the light. He does not look up. He is in his own world, a world of grass and sun and the ache of his back. You envy him for a moment, the simplicity of his labor. But you do not stop. You walk. The road curves, and the monastery disappears behind a low hill. You turn to look, but there is only the hill and the sky and the long shadow of a cloud moving across the field. The monastery is gone, hidden, but you feel it still, like a stone dropped into a pond, the ripples spreading outward. You touch the pouch under your tunic, and you feel the bread, the rosemary, the note. They are small things, but they are heavy with meaning. You think of the guest master, who will not speak of you to anyone. You think of the abbot, who will remember you in his prayers. You think of the bell ringer, who will rise again tonight and ring the bells, and perhaps miss matins again, and perhaps copy another psalm, and perhaps find his own silence in the copying. The road forks, and you take the left path, as the porter said. The ground becomes softer, more shaded. The trees on either side are old oaks, their branches interlaced above you like the ribs of a great ship. The light filters through the leaves, green and gold and shifting. You hear the sound of water, a stream running beside the path. You stop and kneel, cupping your hands to drink. The water is cold and clear, and it tastes of stone and moss. You splash your face, and the coolness runs down your neck. You sit for a while on the bank, watching the water slide over pebbles, the small ripples, the insects skimming the surface. You think of the stream as time, always moving, always the same. You think of the monastery as a place where time stands still, or at least where it moves slowly enough to be noticed. You are grateful for that noticing. A bird calls, a thrush, its song rising and falling, clear and liquid. You listen, and you realize that you have not listened to a bird for years. You have heard them, of course, but you have not listened. The difference is everything. The thrush sings again, and you close your eyes, letting the sound fill you. When you open them, the light has shifted. The shadows are longer. You have been sitting for an hour, maybe more. You stand, feeling the stiffness in your legs, and you walk on. The path narrows, and the trees thin. You come to a clearing where a stone cross stands, worn and leaning. It is old, older than the monastery, perhaps. The base is covered in lichen, orange and gray, and the arms of the cross are chipped and rounded by weather. You stop and touch the stone. It is warm from the sun. You think of the people who raised this cross centuries ago. They did not know you. They could not imagine you. But they built this cross, and it stands here, waiting for you. You feel a connection, thin as spider silk, but real. You are part of a long chain of travelers, each one passing this cross, each one touching the stone, each one moving on. You walk around the clearing, and you find a small chapel half ruined, the roof gone, the walls standing. You step inside. The floor is grass and rubble, and the altar is a flat stone with a hollow in the center, where a relic might have been kept. The walls are covered in faded paintings, saints with halos of ochre and red, their faces worn away by rain and wind. You can see the outline of a hand, the fingers raised in blessing, but the face is gone, erased. You wonder if that matters. The blessing remains, even without the face. You stand in the nave, looking up at the sky through the empty roof. The clouds drift past, white and unhurried. You feel a stillness, not the deep silence of the monastery, but a different kind of quiet, the quiet of abandonment, the quiet of things that have been left behind to weather. You sit on a fallen stone, and you take out the wooden cross from your pocket. You hold it in your palm, and you think of the hands that have held it. You think of the knight who wept in his cell. You think of the guest master who sat in silence. You think of the monk who carved it 100 years ago. He probably sat in a cloister, his knife scraping the wood, the shavings falling around his feet. He did not know where the cross would go. He did not know who would hold it. He just carved, and the cross became a vessel for all the hands that would follow. You look at the cross, and you think of the phrase from the abbot's note, "Let all guests be received as Christ." You do not know what that means, not fully, but you feel its truth in your chest, a quiet knowing that has nothing to do with words. You have been received. You have been a guest. And now you are on the road, carrying that reception with you. You put the cross back in your pocket. You stand and walk out of the chapel. The sun is lower now, the light golden. You have maybe 2 hours until evening. The porter said you would reach a village by nightfall, and you trust his words. You trust the road. You trust the silence that has settled in your bones. The path continues, winding through fields. You pass a shepherd with a flock of sheep, their bells tinkling softly. He nods at you, and you nod back. He does not speak. He is old, with a face like a walnut, cracked and weathered. He carries a staff, and his dog, a shaggy creature, lies at his feet, watching the sheep with one open eye. You walk past, and you hear the shepherd begin to hum, a low, tuneless melody that blends with the bells and the wind. It is not a song, not really. It is a sound that belongs to the land, like the rustle of grass or the cry of a bird. The road dips into a hollow, and you see the village ahead, a cluster of roofs, a tower, a wisp of smoke. It is small, a dozen houses, a church, a mill. You quicken your steps, not from urgency, but from anticipation. You will find a place to sleep, a bowl of soup, a fire. But you are not hungry for these things, not exactly. You are hungry for the continuation of the day, for the unfolding of the evening, for the small rituals of arrival. You reach the edge of the village. A boy is driving a cow along the lane, and he stares at you with wide eyes. You are a stranger, and strangers are rare. You smile at him, and he ducks his head, embarrassed. You walk to the center of the village, where a well stands. There is a bench beside it, and you sit. The cross in your pocket presses against your thigh. You take it out and hold it again. You think of the abbot, who said you would know what to do when the time came. The time has not come yet. You are still holding the cross, still deciding. The door of a nearby cottage opens, and a woman comes out, carrying a basket of bread. She sees you and hesitates. Then she walks over and offers you a piece, still warm. She says something in a language you do not understand, but the meaning is clear. Eat. You thank her, and she nods and goes back inside. The bread is coarse and nutty, and it fills your mouth with the taste of grain and fire. You eat slowly, letting each bite dissolve on your tongue. The bread is a gift, and you receive it as a guest. You finish the bread and dust the crumbs from your tunic. The cross is still in your hand. You look at it, and you think of the knight who carried it before you. You think of the guest master who never spoke. You think of the monk who carved it. You hold the cross up to the fading light, and you see the grain of the wood, the tiny marks of the knife. It is nothing, a scrap of wood. And it is everything, a link in a chain that stretches back 100 years and forward into a future you cannot see. A man approaches. He is tall, with a grizzled beard and a staff. He looks at you with calm eyes. He says, in a rough but kind voice, that you are welcome to spend the night in the church. The priest is away, but the door is always open. You thank him, and he points to the tower at the end of the lane. You walk there, and the door is indeed open, a simple wooden door with an iron ring. You push it open, and you step inside. The church is small and dark, with a few candles burning before a statue of the Virgin. The air smells of damp stone and old incense. There are benches, and a stone floor, and a roof of wooden beams. You find a corner near a pillar, and you sit down, your back against the stone. You take out the cross again, and you hold it in your palm. The candlelight flickers, making the wood glow. You do not pray. You do not think. You sit, and you breathe, and you let the silence of the church wrap around you. It is not the silence of the monastery, but it is a cousin to it, a sibling. It is the silence of a place that has held many prayers, many fears, many hopes. You are a guest here too. You have been a guest all day, and you will be a guest again tomorrow. That is the traveler's way. You close your eyes, and you feel the cross in your hand, the weight of it, the warmth. You think of the knight who wept. You think of the monk who carved it. You think of the abbot who gave it to you. You think of the porter who waved from the gate. You think of the shepherd who hummed. You think of the woman who gave you bread. You think of all the hands that have touched this cross, and you know that you are one of them, a single link in the chain. You open your eyes. The candles have burned down. The church is darker, quieter. You stand and walk to the altar, a simple stone slab with a wooden cross upon it. You place your cross beside it, side by side. You do not know why. It feels right. You leave it there, a gift for the next traveler, or for the priest, or for the church. You do not look back. You return to your corner and lie down on the hard floor. You have no blanket, but you have your cloak, and you have the warmth of the day still in your body. You curl up, your head on your arm, and you close your eyes. The floor is cold, but you are not uncomfortable. You are tired, deeply tired, the kind of tired that comes not from exertion, but from letting go. You have set down your burdens one by one, and now you are empty, light, drifting. You hear the wind outside, rustling the leaves. You hear the creak of the church roof, the settling of stone. You hear your own breath, slow and even. You think of the monastery, of the bell ringer counting his psalms, of the guest master waiting in the shadows, of the abbot reading a prayer. You are a thread of their story, and they are a thread of yours. You are all connected, all travelers, all guests. You sleep. And in your sleep, you dream of a candle, a single flame burning in a dark room. You hold it in your hand, and it does not burn you. It warms you. You walk through the dark, and the candle lights your way. You see a door, and you open it. Beyond the door is a garden, green and quiet, and a figure sitting on a bench, waiting. You do not know who it is, but you are not afraid. You step through the door, and you wake. The church is gray with dawn. A bird is singing outside the window. You sit up, stiff but rested. The cross is still on the altar where you left it. You look at it, and you feel no sorrow, no attachment. You have given it away, and that is good. You stand, stretch, and walk out of the church. The village is stirring. A rooster crows. A dog barks. Smoke rises from chimneys. You walk to the well, draw water, and drink. You are a guest again in a new day, on a new road. You do not know where it leads, but you are ready. The sun rises over the roofs, and you turn eastward where the road disappears into the hills. You take a step, and then another. The cross is gone, but the peace remains. You carry it with you, a candle hidden under your cloak, lighting the way, one step at a time. You walk eastward, and the road rises gently, climbing out of the village and into the hills. The grass is wet with dew, and your boots grow dark with moisture. You do not mind. The dampness is cool and clean, and it wakes your feet, reminds you that you are alive, that you are moving, that the world is still turning. The sun climbs with you, slow and patient, and the shadows shorten. You pass a field of barley, green and silver in the morning light, and you hear the rustle of the stalks, a sound like whispered secrets. You stop for a moment, just to listen. The field stretches to the horizon, and you imagine the monks who once tended it, their backs bent, their hands in the soil, their lips moving in prayer. They are gone now, but the barley grows, and the wind blows, and you are here, a witness to their labor. The road curves, and you enter a wood. The trees are old, their branches intertwined, forming a canopy that filters the light into a greenish gloom. The air is cool here, and you smell moss and earth and something sweet, like rotting apples. You walk slowly, stepping over roots and around puddles. A squirrel darts across the path, stops, looks at you, and disappears into the undergrowth. You smile. You feel like a character in an old tale, a wanderer in an enchanted forest, and you half expect to meet a hermit or a talking animal. But the wood is quiet, and you are alone, and that is enough. After an hour, you come to a clearing. In the center stands a stone cross, weathered and lichen covered. It is old, older than the monastery, older than the village, older perhaps than the kingdom itself. You walk to it and place your hand on the cold stone. You feel the carvings, faint and worn, symbols you do not recognize. You do not try to decipher them. You simply stand there, your hand on the cross, and you let the silence settle. You think of the people who raised this stone, generation after generation, their names forgotten, their faces dust. They believed in something, and they left this mark. You believe, too, but you are not sure in what. You believe in the road. You believe in the generosity of strangers. You believe in the weight of a cross in your pocket, even if that cross is now resting on an altar in a village church. You take your hand away and you walk on. The wood ends and the road opens into a valley. A river runs through it, wide and slow, and you see a bridge, a single stone arch spanning the water. You walk to the bridge and stop in the middle, looking down. The water is clear, and you can see the stones at the bottom, rounded and smooth. A fish drifts by, silver and still, and you watch it until it disappears into the shadow of the bridge. You lean on the low wall, and you feel the sun on your face, and you think about water. How old is this river? How many travelers have crossed this bridge? How many have stopped, as you have, to look down and dream? You do not know, but you feel connected to them, all of them, a chain of wanderers stretching back into time. You cross the bridge, and the road climbs again, through meadows dotted with wildflowers. The air is warm now, and you feel a light sweat on your brow. You take off your cloak and fold it over your arm. You walk more slowly, savoring the heat. You pass a ruin, an old tower, half crumbled, covered in ivy. A bird nests in the top, and you hear its call, a single note, repeated. You stop and look at the tower, and you imagine the knight who once lived there, his armor rusting, his world shrinking around him. You think of the knight in the monastery, the one who wept, and you wonder if he was like this, a man in a tower, watching the world change. You feel a pang of sadness, but it is a soft sadness, like the fading light at dusk. You move on. By midday, you reach a small hill. The road divides, one path continuing east, the other turning south. You stop at the fork and look both ways. There is no signpost, no marker. You have no map, no compass. You have only the cross in your pocket, which you no longer have, and the peace in your chest, which you do. You close your eyes and you listen. You hear the wind, the birds, the distant buzz of an insect. You hear nothing else. You open your eyes and you choose the southern path. It feels right, and that is all you need. The southern path leads through a forest of beech trees, their trunks pale and smooth as bone. The light here is softer, greener, and the air smells of damp earth and leaves. You walk for a long time, lost in thought, your mind drifting like the river you crossed. You think of the guest master, his silence, his waiting. You think of the monk who carved the cross, his hands, his patience. You think of the abbot, his eyes, his knowing. You feel their presence around you, not as ghosts, but as echoes, as stories that have entered your own story and made it richer. You come to a clearing, and in the center stands a small chapel, no larger than a cottage. It is made of stone, with a wooden door and a narrow window. You walk to it, and you see that the door is slightly ajar. You push it open, and you step inside. The chapel is empty, but for an altar and a single candle burning. The flame is small, steady, and it lights the space with a gentle orange glow. You sit on the stone floor, your back against the wall, and you watch the candle. You do not pray. You do not think. You watch, and you breathe, and you let the flame hold your attention. Minutes pass, or hours, you do not know. The candle burns, the flame flickers, and you feel yourself growing quiet, still, like the water in the river, deep and smooth. You close your eyes and you see the candle behind your eyelids, a white light, warm and soft. You breathe in and you feel the light fill you. You breathe out and you feel the light spread around you. You are the candle. You are the flame. You are the air that feeds it and the wax that holds it. You are everything and nothing, and it is enough. You open your eyes. The candle has burned low, the pool of wax deep and clear. You stand, and you walk to the altar. You do not have a cross to leave, but you have a thought, a wish, a hope. You place it on the altar, not with your hands, but with your heart. You do not know what it is, but it is yours, and you give it away freely. You turn and you leave the chapel, closing the door behind you. Outside, the light has shifted. The sun is lower, and the shadows are long. You look up, and you see a bird circling high in the sky, a speck against the blue. You feel a lightness in your steps, as if the earth has softened beneath you. You walk back to the road, and you continue south, following the path wherever it leads. The road descends into a valley, and you see a village in the distance, smaller than the one you left, a huddle of roofs and trees. You walk toward it, and the light fades, and the air cools. You reach the edge of the village as the first stars appear, faint and hesitant. You find the church, a simple building with a bell tower, and you knock on the door. A priest opens it, old and kind, and he welcomes you without words. He gives you bread and water, and he shows you a corner where you can sleep, on a bed of straw. You thank him and you lie down, and you look up at the wooden roof, the beams dark with age. You think of the candle burning alone in the chapel. You think of the cross on the altar in the village church. You think of all the places you have rested and all the places you will rest again. You are a traveler, a guest, a candle carried in the dark. You close your eyes and you hear the wind, and you hear the priest humming a hymn, low and soft. You sleep, and in your sleep, you dream of a garden green and quiet, and a figure sitting on a bench, waiting for you. You walk toward them, and they smile, and you know in the way of dreams that they have been waiting a long time. You sit beside them, and you do not speak. You sit together in silence, and it is the deepest silence you have ever known. It is the silence of the monastery, the silence of the road, the silence of the cross. It is the silence that holds everything and nothing, and you are part of it, a thread of its quiet, a flame of its light. You wake, and the church is gray with mourning. The priest is gone, but there is a crust of bread on the altar and a cup of water. You eat, you drink, and you step outside. The village is waking, a dog barking, a door creaking, a child laughing. You walk to the edge of the road, and you look eastward, where the sun is rising over the hills. You take a step, and then another. You do not know where you are going, And that is the point. You are a candle hidden under your cloak, lighting the way one step at a time, one breath at a time, one heartbeat at a time. You walk, and the road unfolds before you, and it is enough. It is always enough. You walk east, and the road rises gently, leaving the village behind. The sun climbs with you, warming your back, and you feel the straw still clinging to your clothes from the night. You brush it off, a few strands catching the light, and you let them fall. The road is dirt, packed hard by years of feet and wheels, and it curves ahead into a copse of oak trees. Their leaves are dark and dense, and as you enter their shade, the air cools, and the light breaks into scattered coins on the ground. You step from one patch of gold to the next, and you hear the rustle of something small in the underbrush, a mouse, perhaps, or a bird foraging. You do not look. You listen, and the sound fades, and you are alone again. The copse opens into a wide meadow, and you stop at the edge. The grass is tall, reaching your knees, and it sways in a slow wind that comes from nowhere and goes everywhere. You see a path worn through the grass, a narrow thread of bare earth, and you follow it. The grass whispers against your legs, and you think of the monks in their fields, scything hay in the summer, their robes tucked up, their faces red with effort. You imagine their songs carrying across the meadow, the Latin words rising and falling like the wind itself. You do not know the words, but you know the feeling, the way a song can hold a community together, can make the work lighter, the day shorter. You hum a tune you do not remember learning, a simple melody, and you walk. The path leads to a stream, clear and shallow, running over pebbles. You take off your shoes and you step in. The water is cold, sharp against your skin, and you gasp, but it is a quiet gasp, a private one. You stand there, letting the water flow around your ankles, and you watch the ripples spread, concentric and endless. You think of the rivers you have crossed, the bridges you have stood on, and you feel a thread connecting them, a line of water running through all the landscapes of your life. You bend down and cup your hands, and you drink. The water tastes of stone and earth, clean and simple. You dry your feet with the hem of your cloak, and you put your shoes back on, and you cross the stream, stepping from stone to stone, careful and slow. On the other side, the ground rises into a gentle hill, and you climb it without hurry. At the top, you stop and turn around. You can see the village behind you, small and distant, the church tower a stub of gray against the green. You can see the forest you passed through, a dark stain on the land, and the river you crossed earlier, a glittering thread. You can see the monastery, far to the north, invisible now, but you feel its pull, its memory, its silence. You stand there for a long time looking, and you think of all the pilgrims who have stood on this hill in this same light and looked back at where they came from. You think of the ones who wept, the ones who laughed, the ones who turned and walked away, never to return. They are all here with you on this hill, in the wind, in the grass, in the beating of your heart. You stay until the wind shifts, and the warmth of the morning fades into the cool of approaching noon, and then you walk on. The road descends, and the landscape changes. The meadows give way to rocky ground, scattered with low bushes and gray stones. The soil is thin here, and the grass is sparse, and you see a shepherd in the distance, leaning on a staff, his sheep scattered around him like clouds on a green sky. He does not seem to see you, or if he does not acknowledge you. You pass at a distance, and you hear him call out a word you do not understand, a sound that carries across the emptiness and disappears. You think of the guest master who did not ask questions, who let you arrive and leave without a word. The shepherd is like him, a figure in the landscape, a keeper of silence, a witness to the slow passing of time. You walk until the sun is high, and your shadow shrinks beneath you. You find a flat rock by the side of the road, and you sit down. You have no food, no water, but you are not hungry. You are tired, but it is a good tired, the tiredness of movement, of air and earth and sunlight. You close your eyes and you listen. The wind, a bird, the distant bleat of a sheep. You open your eyes and you see a figure on the road coming toward you. A man old with a long beard and a staff. He walks slowly, his head bent. And as he gets closer, you see that he is wearing a robe, patched and faded. He looks up and he meets your eyes and he smiles. It is a small smile, barely a movement of the lips, but it is there. He stops in front of you and he says nothing. He reaches into his robe and he pulls out a piece of bread, dark and dense, and he holds it out to you. You take it and you nod and you break it in two. You give half back to him and he takes it and he sits down beside you on the rock. You eat together in silence, and it is the most natural thing in the world. You do not know his name. You do not ask. He finishes his bread and he stands and he touches your shoulder, a light touch, and he walks on. You watch him go, his figure growing smaller against the vast landscape, and you feel a warmth in your chest, not from the bread, but from something else, something you cannot name. You finish your own bread and you stand, and you continue in the direction from which he came. The road curves, and you see a structure ahead, a stone building, low and long. It is not a monastery, not a church. It is a barn, perhaps, or storehouse. As you get closer, you see that it is a hospice, a place for travelers. The door is open, and you step inside. The space is dark, lit only by the light from the doorway and a small fire in a hearth. There is a bed, a simple wooden frame with a straw mattress, and a table with a jug and a cup. A woman sits by the fire, old and bent, her hands busy with a piece of cloth. She looks up, and she nods, and she gestures toward the bed. You lie down, and the straw rustles beneath you, and you feel the day's journey settling into your bones. The woman hums a tune, low and steady, and the fire cracks, and you close your eyes. You do not sleep, not yet. You lie still, and you think of the man who gave you bread, and the shepherd who called out, and the priest who welcomed you, and the guest master who waited. You are part of a chain, a long chain of hospitality, each person giving and receiving, offering and accepting without words. You feel the weight of this chain, how it holds you, how it connects you to everyone you have met and everyone you will meet. You open your eyes, and the fire has burned low, and the woman is gone. A cup of water sits on the table, and a piece of cloth folded. You sit up, and you drink the water, and you unfold the cloth. It is a small piece of embroidery, a tree, its branches reaching out, its roots deep. You do not know what it is meant to be, but you hold it for a long time, and then you fold it and put it in your pocket. You stand, and you leave the hospice, and the cool air wakes you fully. The day is fading now, the sun low and golden. You walk on, and the road climbs again into a range of low hills. The light turns amber, then rose, and the shadows stretch long and blue. You come to a ridge, and you see the road winding ahead, disappearing into a valley where a thin plume of smoke rises, straight and white. You think of a fire, a hearth, a meal being prepared. You think of the monks gathering in the refectory, their bowls in their hands, their heads bowed. You think of the candle burning in the chapel, its flame unwavering. You walk toward the smoke, and the road leads you into the valley, and you find a small farm, a house, a barn, a pen of chickens. A man stands by the door, and he sees you, and he waves. You approach, and he offers you a place by the fire, and a bowl of stew, and a corner of the barn where you can sleep. You accept, and you eat, and you sit by the fire, and you listen to the crackle and the pop, and you feel the warmth on your face. The man and his wife speak in a language you do not understand, but the sounds are soft and rhythmic, like the monks chant, and you let them wash over you. You think of all the languages you have heard today, the Latin, the shepherd's call, the woman's hum, the priest's hymn. They are all part of the same song, the song of human voices, rising and falling, telling stories, asking for help, offering welcome. You are part of that song now, a note in its melody, a beat in its rhythm. You go to the barn, and you lie down in the hay, and you look up at the wooden rafters. A lantern hangs from a hook, its flame small and bright. You watch it, and you think of the candle in the chapel, and the candle in your dream, and the candles burning in 1,000 monasteries, 1,000 churches, 1,000 homes. You are a candle carried in the dark, and the dark is full of other candles, all burning, all held. You close your eyes and you sleep, and you do not dream. You wake, and it is morning, and the lantern has burned out. You stand, and you stretch, and you walk out into the gray light. The farmer gives you a piece of cheese and a handful of dried apples, and you thank him, and you walk on. The road leads you through the valley and up the other side, and you see a distant spire, familiar and thin. It is the monastery you left, or another one, you cannot tell. You walk toward it, and the road rises and falls, and the morning brightens, and the spire grows closer. You reach the gate, and you see the guest master standing there, as if he has been waiting for you, the same silence, the same patience. You nod, and he nods, and he opens the gate, and you step inside. The courtyard is quiet, the fountain still. You sit on the bench by the fountain, and you look at the cloister, the arches, the worn stone. You feel the journey leaving you, settling into the ground, into the stone, into the silence. You are home, and you have never been away. You close your eyes, and you hear the water and the wind and the distant chant of the monks, and you are part of it, as you always were, as you always will be. A candle burning in the stillness, a guest welcomed and waiting, a pilgrim returned and resting. You open your eyes, and the guest master is still there, waiting. You smile, and the sun breaks through the clouds, and the world is quiet, and it is enough.